Hey guys, my name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a book talk for We Are the Ants by Shaun Hutchinson, and I can just tell you right now that this is one of my favorite books of all time, and I have a lot to say about it, so let's go. Alright, so We Are the Ants is a young adult contemporary. It has some sci-fi fantasy elements, but it's mostly a coming-of-age story about a young boy named Henry. The premise of this book sounds kind of ridiculous, but I promise it's really good. The premise of this book is that this boy Henry gets abducted by these aliens every couple of nights. They tell him that the world is going to end on January 29th and that he has the power to stop it if he presses this big red button. And that might sound like it's just like, what? Like insane, but guys, this book is so good. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, and it was just so incredible. Like, the first chapter of this book was one of the most intriguing first chapters I've ever read. I freaking tabbed the hell out of this thing because I just couldn't get enough of this writing style and these characters. The best way I know how to compare this would be like Donnie Darko meets The Perks of Being a Wallflower meets Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe. And that might sound like crazy. Honestly, if you like Donnie Darko, the movie, then you will most likely love this book just because he's so similar, and Donnie Darko also has to do with like the world's gonna end and he has to like figure out what he wants to do about it, you know. It's very similar in that sense. And then like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, just because Henry's character is pretty similar to Charlie. He's very like social outcast kind of and awkward and like has a terrible high school life. And then like Aristotle and Dante, because of the LGBT elements and because of the way Aristotle thinks and like the way Aristotle and Dante is written is very similar to like this. So it's just a great combination of things. I love how in this book every single character is really fleshed out and they have like their own stories going on. Each member of his family has these crazy detailed backstories going on. Like, for example, his mom, she's grieving over the fact that their father left them a couple years ago, and then there's his brother Charlie, who recently got his girlfriend Zoe pregnant and he has to drop out of college. Jesse's storyline going on in flashbacks of his boyfriend who committed suicide. And then there's Diego, who is this boy that Henry meets, and there's his old best friend Audrey, and then there's this boy named Marcus at school that you learn about his story and his background, and Henry's grandmother is slowly losing her memory. So every single character has something to contribute to this book, which I think is really cool. I absolutely love Diego's character. He's just such a positive energy, and I just really think that that's someone that Henry needs in his life. I love how in this book too, Henry will go up to like every single person he ever encounters and ask them, if the world was gonna end and you had the power to save it, would you? And then every single character had like their own unique answer depending on what they were going through personally. I think that this book talks about life in such an honest and real way. Like, it emphasizes that like we don't matter to the universe. None of this is gonna matter in a couple of 100 years, so like why do we even try? It constantly repeats this quote of, we remember the past, live in the present, and write the future. The ending of this book just left me breathless and like lost in thought. As soon as I read the last few pages, I just felt so many emotions like bottled up here, and I was just like, ugh, million words coming to the surface, but you can't even begin to describe how it makes you feel and like what kind of an impact it had on you. I also listened to this playlist of music while I was reading the book, which really helped me get into it and made me feel more emotional, I think. And I'll put it in the description if you guys want to check it out. It really, I feel like it went with the book really well. This is all I'm gonna say for the non-spoilery part of it. I just think that this is one of my new all-time favorite books, and I feel like in some small way this book kind of changed my life, or at least changed my perspective on certain things. Absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it. Please go check it out. I'm gonna jump into some spoilery content, so if you haven't read it, please go read it and then come back and talk with me, because this book is phenomenal. And yeah, so spoilers ahead. The first chapter is so like depressing and like hopeless, you know, like he's talking about how like we think we matter to the universe, but we don't, because we're the ants, you know. And it's like, that was so powerful to me, and it intrigued me so much to continue reading. In that first chapter I was like, whoa, like that's powerful stuff right there. And then at the last chapter he says, the universe might forget us, but it doesn't matter because we are the ants and we'll keep marching on. And I just thought that that was such a beautiful full circle, really discovered the meaning of life throughout the pages of this book. And I kind of love that it ends without us ever really finding out if the world ends, because I know that it would be kind of controversial for some people, because that's kind of the premise of this book. That was a beautiful way to end it, because then we're kind of left wondering, was it all in Henry's head the whole time, like this idea that the world was going to end just because of the fact that he was so depressed, you know, or was it actually going to happen? And then if it does actually happen, like, does it really matter, you know, because like that was emphasized a lot throughout this book too, like, would it even really matter? I was really upset and sad to see Henry blaming himself so often for Jesse's death when Henry was constantly getting bullied in school by Marcus and all these guys. Like that scene where he just gets jumped in the showers by those 3 boys wearing alien masks, and he knows that one of them is Marcus because he can smell the cologne. And then they dump green paint on him and they call him Space Boy and they make fun of him and kick him and like literally beat the shit out of him, and then they have to call the police, and like, oh my god, it was just so sad. And then they took that picture of him and posted it everywhere, and now everyone can see his like naked beat up body. Like I just And then when Marcus even tries to rape him at the end, like I was so mad. Like anyways, on a brighter note, I really loved Diego in this book. I loved how he talked about protecting his sister and his mom against his dad. I was surprised to learn that Diego had been in juvie. I mean, I didn't like expect that obviously, but it kind of makes sense when you think about the way his character is. It's pretty brave for what he did, and I respect him for that actually. So it just made me like his character even more, because he's willing to protect the people he loves, and that's shown a lot throughout this book, even with Henry at the end when he goes to like beat up Marcus because Marcus tried to rape him. I also loved that scene where Henry basically like convinced his mom to get a real cooking job again. He was just like, God, Mom, just get a mirror, like you're amazing, you know? And then when they were at the seafood restaurant, she was finally like, oh, I got a job here. Everybody was like, congratulations, and they were like, what made you decide to do it? And then she was just like, someone gave me a mirror. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. I also really enjoyed this side story going on of Charlie getting his girlfriend pregnant, and I thought it was very interesting to see Charlie grow as a character. Like Charlie really grows as a character in this book. Loved that scene where Henry and Zoe are talking in the car and he's all like, oh, Charlie's gonna make a terrible father, and then Zoe tells him that like he was the reason why she didn't get an abortion, because he said he wanted the baby, and changed Henry's perspective on things just a little bit. And then that was so sad on New Year's Day when she lost the baby and had a miscarriage. It was so sad because they already had the baby's room already laid out. They had the crib and they painted it. That was so sad to see Charlie's character kind of like losing his shit again, and he went into the baby's room and was like crying and like throwing things, and like to see Henry be there for him in that moment, you know, like it was just so sad. But I think it was like definitely a full circle for their relationship and their characters. I also really loved seeing Diego kind of bring Henry and Audrey together again, because Henry and Audrey used to be best friends, but then when Jesse killed himself, they both kind of like blamed themselves and went off on their separate ways, and like I think they kind of reminded each other of the situation, so they didn't want to be around each other. But I loved that carnival scene where Diego kind of like made them talk again, and I just thought that was really great for both of them to realize that they were both blaming themselves and like they could have each other to turn to. And I also really loved that cute beach scene where Diego brings Henry a telescope to help him like see the aliens, and I love that Diego never judges him or questions him or makes him feel like he's crazy. I love that he's so sweet to Henry all the time. Also, the Thanksgiving barbecue scene was also really cute, because who has barbecues on Thanksgiving? Like I just thought that was really interesting, and that's the first scene where they really start to connect and kind of like fall for each other. I also loved that scene where we realized that Diego has painted the portrait of Henry. It's like a painting of him, and then like inside of his head it's all the faces of his family, and then in the background there's like a huge alien symbol, and then there's like his hand is like hovering over a red button. I think it made Henry realize that that's the way Diego sees him, like the space boy isn't a bad thing, you know, like it's a positive thing. And I think at the end it was so sad to see Henry just become overwhelmed with it all and finally admit to his mom that he wasn't okay, and she was like, I didn't realize it had gotten this bad, and he was like, it's because you always needed me to be okay. And then at the end I really loved seeing Charlie and Zoe finally getting married because they were so cute, and I'm so glad that they ended up working out because I really enjoyed them as a couple in this book. But overall, I just think the alien aspect of this book was really interesting, but at the end of the day, that's not what this book was about, you know? Like, this book is definitely about a teenage boy who is depressed and suicidal at times, but through a series of tragic events, he discovers the meaning of life. And I think that's really beautiful, and I love the way the book just ends on this quote: we may not get to choose how we die, but we do get to choose how we live. The universe may forget us, but it doesn't matter because we are the ants and we'll keep marching on. There isn't a more perfect way to end a story like this. This book was so great. Like, I genuinely feel like in some small way this book has changed my life, and I love it, and I can't talk enough about it. Have you read it? What are your thoughts? Please let me know. I would love to talk about this book with you guys if you read it. If not, you need to pick it up. It's freaking great. Thank you so much for watching as always. See you guys.